Go ahead and look. Everywhere you turn, Indiana Fever is breaking records. All Cheryl Swoopes did was validate all the speculation that there's folks hating on Caitlin Clark.
Stephen A. Smith believes Caitlin Clark certainly can't catch a break, especially when her haters are always on the move and not giving her the recognition she deserves. With Clark and the Indiana Fever surging right now, it goes without saying that the rookie point guard is the reason why this team is on a roll. But as Stephen A. said, there seems to be some haterade around the league. And we're not talking about the active players who pummel Clark and criticize her on a regular basis, because we're looking at one of the most decorated players in the history of the WNBA, Cheryl Swoopes. Now, there's no doubt that Cheryl has done her due in the league. She's a 3-time MVP, a 4-time champ, and is one of the women who helped the WNBA become what it is today. But it's kind of a mystery why she hasn't been saying a lot of good stuff about Caitlin Clark. In Stephen A.'s video, the outspoken sports commentator brought up the fact that Cheryl praised the Fever for what they've been doing recently, which is winning. Cheryl said in her podcast that,
I think the Olympic break really helped Indiana. I'm going to shout out to Lexi Hull. I'm a big Lexi Hull fan. Lexi Hull shot the leather off the ball in their game against Seattle. Kelsey Mitchell is just stroking. She's just shooting the basketball. Aaliyah Boston, almost a triple-double. If Indiana continues to play the way they're playing like this, they too are going to move up in the standings.
So if you look at what Cheryl said, she was happy enough to praise the entire Fever team because they're now winning and moving up the WNBA standings at the right time, especially with the playoffs looming over the distance. But you'd also notice that she left out the most important name in the Fever's success. Yes, we're talking about Caitlin Clark. Ever since Clark broke through the world of basketball, she's been one of the most popular women athletes in the world. She became one of the biggest names in the sport when she was a junior 2 years ago, helping Iowa get to the national championship game with her incredible scoring and playmaking. Though she didn't win a national title in 2023, her stock kept on rising, especially because she was only getting better. As a senior, she really took off. Clark broke record after record, becoming the highest-scoring female college player of all time. She didn't stop there. Although Pistol Pete Maravich's college scoring record total is said to be unbreakable for any man, it took a woman to finally put that record in second place when Clark broke it, becoming the highest-scoring college basketball player in the history of the sport. She did it in spectacular fashion, hitting long three-pointers from Steph Curry's range and shooting shots off the dribble in front of any defender. Her magnetism is off the charts, and it's clear that people are drawn to her charisma, incredible shot-making abilities, and personality. She was the biggest name in women's basketball before she even got to the WNBA. Thanks to the NIL contracts, Clark was making a lot of money in college, and even before turning pro. She has made guest appearances on Saturday Night Live and has a lot of commercials for companies like Gatorade and Nike. She should also be on the way to earning her first signature sneaker deal, especially with her popularity. The combination of her on-court skills, her magnetic personality, and her popularity were the biggest reasons why she was the top overall pick in 2024 for the Indiana Fever. It wasn't even debatable. But despite her success as a player and a person, Clark hasn't been on the good side of many other personalities in the WNBA. It goes without saying that legends and current players alike haven't been totally happy with the type of popularity and spotlight that Clark has been getting. She is getting criticized by popular names like Diana Taurasi and Cheryl Reeve. Taurasi has always been openly talking about Clark, finding ways to downplay her success. At 42 years old, Taurasi is still one of the best players in the world and is still regarded as the GOAT of women's basketball. But she hasn't been happy with the way Clark has been getting the same attention and fanfare that none of the previous players got. Cheryl Reeve, the legendary head coach of the Minnesota Lynx, has also been open about her doubts about Clark's capabilities. Of course, we've seen current players taking the hate to Clark as well. She's getting bruised and beaten on the court by women who want to get physical with her. Angel Reese, her fellow rookie, is arguably Clark's biggest rival, and that's because they've faced off with each other quite a few times in college. Things got chippy back then, and Reese continues to show why she's at the other end of the Caitlin Clark popularity spectrum, even claiming that she's also the reason why the WNBA is becoming more popular. But out of all the different outspoken women we've seen talking bad about Clark, or not giving her the props she deserves, no one stands above Cheryl. And Stephen A. Smith got tired of all her hating. Cheryl is undoubtedly one of the true legends of the game because of her achievements in college and in the WNBA. Though she was already older when the WNBA started, she still showed why she was one of the best players players in all of women's basketball by winning countless awards. But her time is now done, and it goes without saying that she hasn't been totally happy about younger players taking the game to newer heights. She's quite active on her podcast, but she hasn't said anything nice about Caitlin Clark at all. At one point, she openly said that Angel Reese should win the WNBA Rookie of the Year, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. When she decided not to mention Clark when talking about the Fever's recent success, it became clear to Stephen A. and the rest of the world that she wasn't really interested in giving the most popular rookie in WNBA history the respect she deserved. Stephen A. said that Cheryl was insane for doing what she did because people expect more out of her. He said,
Cheryl Swoopes, you're one of the greatest players ever in the history of basketball. See, you won a championship in college at Texas Tech. You won 3 Olympic gold medals. You won 4 WNBA championships. You know basketball. You know basketball better than me. You know basketball than any of the pundits. You know basketball better than most of the men that play basketball. There is no way in hell you just accidentally left Caitlin Clark's name out of that soliloquy that you dropped about the Indiana Fever. Stop it.
Stephen A. was obviously saying that someone of Cheryl's caliber shouldn't be bringing Clark down deliberately. She knows basketball, and she should understand that the biggest reason why the Fever have been playing incredibly well in their recent games is because Clark has been balling out. In the last 8 games, where the Fever won 5 of those outings, Clark averaged 23 points, 5.9 rebounds, and 11.4 assists. This includes a triple-double performance and a rookie-high 19-assist performance. So, even if she hasn't been hitting her shots well enough as a rookie, she's still doing all the other things, like making life easy for her teammates as a point guard, all while putting up great all-around numbers. It's simply a travesty that someone as great as Cheryl doesn't want to recognize that the biggest reason why the Fever has been playing well is because Clark has been at her best. This is like you're saying that the Los Angeles Lakers won the 2020 championship because Kyle Kuzma and Danny Green were balling, and not because LeBron James was almost averaging a triple-double. Someone of Cheryl's stature should be praising this star rookie instead of treating her performances like they don't matter. This is where it gets interesting because everyone knows that the WNBA needs Caitlin Clark. She doesn't need the league because she can ball out somewhere else and get millions of dollars. Ice Cube even offered her a huge deal to play for the Big 3 league. The WNBA doesn't have the money to match that offer, but Clark still played for them anyway. Throughout its nearly 3-decade history, the WNBA has struggled to put people in arenas or earn good viewership numbers. It might be true that the league has been growing, but it's at a really slow pace that doesn't make a ton of difference at all. The WNBA has never really been profitable, and it's only because of the NBA's funding that it's been able to survive for more than 25 years. Basically, people call this league the NBA's charity work, funneling millions of dollars into it to keep it alive. Cheryl, Diana Taurasi, and all those legends hating on Clark lived through the days when they weren't getting paid a lot of money. The highest paid WNBA player right now isn't even earning half of the NBA's minimum wage. So it's clear that Cheryl, Taurasi, and a lot of legends were getting smaller salaries years ago when the league was still smaller. But here comes Caitlin Clark, who has become the instant box office draw of the WNBA. Every league has gone through dark phases, only for a star athlete to bail everyone out and bring in the viewership numbers. Michael Jordan did that for the NBA during the 80s and 90s, and it goes without saying that Clark is doing that for the women's side of the sport. She's the sole reason why the league has been breaking viewership numbers. The viewership rate of the WNBA right now has been fast-forwarded 5 years into the future because of the Clark effect. She's helped the league garner over 2.3 million views on ABC. She even helped the All-Star Game get a 139% increase in its highest viewership of all time. And she's also been helping out in the merchandise department, as the league reported that its merchandise sales are up by more than 230%. The league is now at the best place it has ever been in terms of its viewership numbers, and Clark is the reason why this is happening. But for some reason, these older players can't accept the fact that this surge is happening because of this one woman. Stephen A. even brought up the fact that Team USA could have been groundbreaking in Paris if they didn't snub Clark out of a roster spot, because people all over the world would have tuned in on women's basketball to see the most popular female player play, and the numbers don't lie. The game between the Minnesota Lynx and the Indiana Fever on August 24th garnered 1.219 million viewers. The next game garnered only 485,000 viewers, and that's on ION, a channel that's not really known. The Fever got more viewers on ION than the highlight game between the New York Liberty and the Las Vegas Aces on CBS. Then, when the Fever met the Seattle Storm on ABC, the game got 2.232 million viewers. Those numbers are not made up, and they show the effect that Clark has on the WNBA. Stephen A. reverted his attention toward Cheryl, saying,
All Cheryl Swoopes did was validate all the speculation that there's folks hating on Caitlin Clark. That's all she did. Because to know basketball like Cheryl Swoopes does, to be as accomplished as she is, to be the Hall of Famer that she is, all accolades that are well-deserved. And I'm certainly not attacking Cheryl Swoopes the person because I think she's a wonderful person. She's certainly always been nothing but class and nice to me. I'm only addressing a point. How do you talk about the Indiana Fever and mention a multitude of players and not one of them is Caitlin Clark, who, by the way, as a rookie is leading the league in assists? How do you do that? How do you do that?
Of course, he brought it back to how she should have been on Team USA for that marketing buzz, and not because she's better than the 12 players chosen to be on that roster. He believes that the women's team should have gotten a lot more viewers had Clark been there to help the team pull the fans into the arena. The scariest part, however, is that Stephen A. believes that Clark is only going to get better. When that happens, the viewership and ratings will blow the roof off of WNBA arenas and give the players the money they deserve. And he brought it back to Cheryl again, saying,
"No matter how great you were as a player, Cheryl Swoopes, there is no woman who should negate mentioning Caitlin Clark and what Caitlin Clark is doing for the game." I know the Monica McNutts and others were getting very, very frustrated at all of the buzz that was going in her direction, not to hate on Caitlin Clark in any way, because I'm sure Monica McNutt does not feel that way. She just knows that there were people on the ground pounding the pavement that were doing so much for women's basketball everywhere that deserved their praise. She was absolutely right in saying that. We don't disagree, but that's utopia.
He was talking about analyst Monica McNutt, who isn't necessarily a Caitlin Clark hater, but is also saying that the WNBA got to where it is today because of the work that players like Cheryl, Taurasi, and many others did in the past. They deserve their praise, but the reality is that no one deserves more praise than Clark herself, because the growth that the league has been seeing only happened as soon as she arrived. You'd be wondering where all this growth was a year ago if what these legends are saying is true. That's what Stephen A. is trying to point out. He's telling Cheryl, McNutt, and every other hater out there that the facts are correct in saying that the league is growing because of Clark and not because of the groundwork of the previous generation. He even called the Clark phenomenon the Great White Hope. That's one of the things that people don't like addressing about Caitlin Clark and what she's been doing for women's basketball. Yes, we know she's white, and everyone can see the color of her skin. People claim that it's her skin color that's making her more popular, especially white people who have never been a fan of women's basketball, but only tuned in when they saw a pretty white girl dominating the sport. This is probably the reason why Cheryl and a lot of other women are hating on Clark. They don't want to see someone of her color getting all the attention she deserves. And no one wants to bring that up and address the fact that it's probably a racial issue for a lot of these haters. Stephen A. recognizes the reality that Clark's skin color is probably the reason why she's so popular, but he doesn't resent this fact because he knows that there's nothing to resent. Clark isn't using her so-called white privilege in the WNBA. She's just a really good player who happens to have the skin color to attract a certain part of the demographics. But it's not her fault that she was born that way or that people of her color love watching a fellow white person dominating women's basketball. Stephen A. even said that there are people in his industry who happen to be white and got paid a lot. Despite that, he wasn't mad at them. Instead, he was thankful to these people for helping set the stage. Setting the stage is the most important part of what Clark has been doing. Yes, she's white, and some people aren't happy about that. But the best part is that she's using her platform not for evil, means that only benefit her, but in ways that allow the WNBA to grow. She's putting the league on the map by using her popularity to her advantage, allowing other women to ride the wave of success that she started. If you look at what Angel Reese has been doing, you'll know what we mean. In 2023, she made headlines when she used the John Cena "You Can't See Me" taunt on Clark during LSU's win over Iowa in the national championship game. You probably never heard of Reese before that game, but she made herself relevant by becoming Clark's rival. Since then, Reese's popularity has been soaring high as well, allowing her to have her own fair share of fans while giving the Chicago Sky good viewership ratings. It's all because she rode the Clark train of popularity. Stephen A. pointed out this smart move by Reese. She's a great player and is on her way to becoming a true superstar in the future. But the reason why she could be a megastar is the fact that she positioned herself as Caitlin Clark's rival. She embraces the hate she gets from Clark fans because she knows that this is her ticket to millions of dollars. The Clark and Reese rivalry has the potential to become the Magic and Bird phenomenon during the 80s era of the NBA. And Reese is trying to cash in on it as early as now in what is a great business move. True enough, she's been hating on Clark, but in a way that gets her to the headlines instead of the worst side of the news. As Stephen A. said, "A rising tide lifts all boats." He's referring to the tide that Clark started. So, in that case, the best thing to do is to ride a boat that rises along with that tide. Reese has been doing that. If Clark didn't exist, Reese would have been just like any other great WNBA player playing at a stellar pace but not making enough noise in the world of women's basketball. This is where everyone in the WNBA should do whatever it takes for everyone to get fed, as Stephen A. said. It doesn't matter if it's a white woman or a black girl getting all the attention and making the league so much bigger. What matters is that the league is rising on a tide started by Clark, and it's better for everyone to find a way to ride the tide as well. You either become Clark's friend or her frenemy, and that's totally fine because that also works. Then, let's go back to Cheryl. She's been out of the league for nearly 15 years already, and she knows her time is already up. She can't ride the same wave that Reese is riding because she can't play in the league anymore. Of course, it could all be a ploy on her part as well. With podcasts becoming very popular nowadays, Cheryl probably knows that getting all the hate from Caitlin Clark's fans is the best way for her to get her podcast to rise through the ranks and potentially earn more money. She can't make money through the WNBA anymore, but that doesn't mean that she can't make money off of women's basketball in general. So, by not mentioning Clark and hating on her, this could be her way of becoming the Angel Reese of podcasting. She's a smart woman, no doubt. And Stephen A. acknowledges the fact that Cheryl knows more about basketball than maybe 90% of the population. So, if that's the case, maybe she's also riding the hate train to get the attention that she and her other fellow legends never got during their time. It's perfectly understandable for them to be salty about Clark and her popularity, even if the reason they're salty is because she's a white woman. They did their part decades ago, but never got paid the same money and attention that Clark has been getting. So, what Cheryl and her contemporaries are doing now is that they're making up for lost time and profits when they couldn't get the viewership and ratings that Clark has been getting. This is something that Stephen A. probably doesn't see, especially because he's been so busy thinking that Cheryl is a legit hater. Whatever the case may be, this doesn't look like the end of this issue, especially when there are still a lot of things that these legends can say or not say about Clark's recent success. And you better bet on the fact that Stephen A. Smith and a lot of other people are going to keep talking about those haters.